That's the formula.
And that's right, I can connect with that. It's the fear of fear.
Yes.
Actually, fear itself is such a pure energy.
Right.
It's so total. There's actually room for nothing else. It's just fear.
That's
It
right.
is the fear of the fear.
It's the fear of fear. And as a total energy, if you don't have any story, you realize it's not even fear, it's just energy.
Yeah.
Fear is always about an imagined future. Always.
Yes, I know that, yes.
Because when you're in the actual moment, if the tiger is in the room, you don't have time to be afraid.
Yeah.
You're in full action.
Yeah.
And so when you're drowning, you don't have time to be afraid. You're going for the next burst of air. And that's what it is. So the fear is always about what's going to happen. What's next? And so it's all a mind projection. So if you're willing to stop the mind projection, you come back into the direct experience, you find you're totally terrified, so what? You then pass through it. Fear becomes a guardian at the gate of liberation, and it brings you deeper.
And are you living a life without fear now?
Fear has never really, I was going to say fear has never been a really issue for me, but there have been times when I've been terrified, and I knew I was a coward growing up because I grew up in a very dangerous neighborhood in New York where I was a Jew in an Irish Catholic neighborhood where I was being accused of killing Christ when I was 5 years old. And so it was dangerous, and I was scared, and I always knew I was scared. And yet I knew that even though I was scared, I could do it anyway. And so that started for me very early. And so when I was arrested as a federal fugitive, it was scary. I jumped a policeman and freed a prisoner, and when we were trying to shut down the city of Washington during May Days in 1971, we had signed a peace treaty with the people in Vietnam. There was fear. I knew I was a coward, but I knew it didn't matter. I can function anyway. And so that happened before I woke up. But now I'm not afraid. And naturally, if there's something to be afraid of, whoa, bus comes close, jump back, But
that's an intelligent, instinctive reaction.
Exactly.
That's not really
right.
fear as such.
It's not. That's right. And so fear of something, no, I don't have that.
Yeah. Well, at the start of the interview, I mentioned this book. So we have about 15 minutes left,
Okay.
14 minutes left, I think. So why don't you just talk briefly about the Enneagram, how it's helped you maybe, and how you see it these days.
Okay. So on our outermost layer of what we call myself is the personality. The personality is biology meeting conditions, and it gets molded. It's like we get extruded through life, through the circumstances of our family, our childhood, our moment in time, and it squeezes out into what we call a personality. But deeper behind the personality is the character fixation. And the character fixation is how we are structured to avoid deficiencies of essence. And our character fixation runs on the primary drives of survival, sex, and relationship. Those three drives run every creature. Every creature has a survival drive. Every creature has a reproductive drive. Every creature has a relationship drive. Because that's what works for survival of the DNA and for passing on the DNA to the next generation. So we all are run by that when we are living as animals, as machines, as biological survival suits. Basically, what we call a body is a survival suit for DNA. And the DNA runs the show. And the DNA makes us attractive to certain other, sniffs out the DNA that'll make a good partner for us. It happens below the conscious level. And we mainly run on that level. And that level builds up an armor against the world. And that armor is the character fixation. The armor is a way of protecting myself against being open and vulnerable to something that could possibly be a predator. And so some of our armor, for some of our fixations, it's about being angry and aggressive. For others, it's about being fearful and retreating. For others, it's about being socially seductive and moving towards. And those are the basic three movements of character fixation. Either you're moving against, you're moving away, or you're moving towards. And those are three basic masks that we put on as survival suits in order to get along in the world and make it. So that we're not open, we're not vulnerable, we act as if we know, we act as if we're in control, we act as if we're in charge. And all that happens from the character. Then we build a personality on top of that. What's deeper than character is our true essence. Our true essence is limitless, immortal consciousness, true intelligence, true love. And that's available and present all the time if you're willing to pierce through your own armor if you're willing to pierce through your own defenses against being open and vulnerable and free.
And there's 9 essential different types of character, isn't there?
Well, so we all have 3 bodies of manifestation. We all have a physical body, an emotional body, and a mental body. And each one of those bodies has its own survival armor, its own survival strategies. And there's 3 versions of mental, 3 versions of emotional, 3 versions of physical. And those are all just different survival suits that we wear in order to present ourselves in the world, in order to survive and replicate. Because that's what the DNA imperative is, survive and replicate. It started as a one-cell being, and now it's a multi-cell being, and the imperative has been the same since the first primordial sea, survive and replicate. But for what? For what purpose? So we have survived and multiplied to the point where now we're overpopulated the world. We will have an eventual die-off, as all overpopulations do. But what was the point? Just to survive and replicate? No. The good news is, the point is, so that we can wake up and be free. And we've developed all these countless thousands of lifetimes to reach the stage where we can say, yes, I must know the truth. I must know what's deeper than my survival drive. I must know what's deeper than my sex drive. I must know what's deeper than my social drive. And to find out who I really am. And that's why we're here. In the past, it was the rare soul, the Buddha, the Christ, the 1 out of 10 million that would finally realize it. And we'd all pray for the next 1,000 years to this holy being. But that's a different time. Those are the forerunners. Now it's everyone's time. This is the time for everyone, every human has the same potential, the same capacity, the same consciousness, the same heart. Every human now, and it's on television, every human now can hear the truth, know it's possible, and investigate. Not to believe it. Don't believe what I'm saying. Check it out. Don't agree with it. Don't have any ideas or faith in it, but simply your own conscious investigation will lead you back to your own heart, which is calling you home. And that's why we're here. And so the fixation is just merely a veil that we put across consciousness in order to survive as animals in a society. And we can see through that veil, we can pierce that veil to find the truth. And the usefulness of the Enneagram is that it shows us where we're most asleep. It shows us the place where we're least willing to look, because it's like the fish in the ocean saying, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. It's so pervasive around us that we don't see it. So the people who are deeply afraid as a character fixation usually are not aware of it. They're aware of their sadness, they're aware of their frustrations, they're aware of their anxieties, but they never call it fear. And so the Enneagram says, oh, look in the mirror here. Maybe there's fear. And you start to see all the different ways that fear is running. But we don't call it fear. We call it, well, I'm just being sure. I'm just checking it out. I'm not. And we make up all these little strategies for different words so we don't have to say I'm afraid. And the same thing with each fixation has a deeper subconscious motor that's running that we avoid looking at directly. We'd rather look at everything else, because to look at that is to face ourselves in the most direct way. And it's been rare in the past, but now it's possible for everybody.